Hey guys, we're gonna keep diving in. We're kind of starting this new section in this new quarter. You'll see my videos are in very random places right now because we kind of got to do what we got to do right now in the world. And so currently I'm in my basement making some videos for you because my up very loud with the small humans. Okay, so let's get going. So this really, we're following along with our textbook. Okay, so if I'm late posting things or if you're really stuck, there's more examples in your online textbook. So use that as a resource. So these videos are really just going to be me walking kind of through a couple of things. Okay, so here in this section, we're looking about how we collect our data and what we're really looking at there. So the first thing is a self-selected sample. So let me get my pen out here. So that is where they volunteer. So people volunteer. So it's like if I was to send out a mail survey and say, hey, mail it back. That's a self-selected because you are choosing to send that back, right? So you're volunteering to be part of this. So then a systematic sample. So then there's a rule used to select people. Or things. Okay, so this rule could be every other person that walks by or every fifth car that drives through this intersection. So there's a system in place to kind of count and collect that data. So a stratified sample, that's kind of our next little word, is where I divide my populations. Remember, population is everybody into smaller groups that share a similar characteristic. Okay. So I take my whole population and I break it down into clusters, and then one of my clusters is selected. Okay. So and then one of my groups is selected. Okay, so a cluster sample. So in a cluster sample, I take my population and I divide it into groups, just kind of randomly here, and then each of those, that is called a cluster. So then all of the members in a cluster are selected. Okay, so my population is broken into groups, and then an entire group is picked. Okay, so I want to go back up to stratified sample. Okay, so where the difference between those two comes in, so in a cluster sample, once I kind of separate everybody out, the whole group is selected. Okay, in a stratified sample, I set everybody into these groups, and then I pick a couple from this group, and a couple from this group, and a couple from this group, okay, to kind of even things out. So then a convenience sample, it's really only members who are easy to reach. So right at the moment, members that would be easy to reach would probably be your family, because those are the only people that you can really have contact with. Right, so if we were back at school, a convenience sample could be like, all right, I'm just going to survey everybody in my first period class, right? Because it's easy to get to them. I kind of know where they're at. Okay, so now let's look at these examples. And I want you to think through these before I put the answers up here. And again, this is all in your textbook, so I'm not going to actually write our answers out. If you want to know for sure, and I'm just going to talk them through, then go ahead and log into Big Ideas and find your book, okay? So you list all of the students alphabetically and choose every sixth. Well, to me, that's a really systematic way because there's a rule in place. So that's how we would go there. So that's a systemic sample. So here again, here's that kind of example I said before. So you mail questionnaires and use only the ones that are returned. So those people that returned them had to choose to return them. So that is going to be our self-selected sample. So and then you ask all of the students in your algebra class. Well, that's pretty easy because they're all in one place together. So that's going to be our convenience sample. Okay. So the next couple of words that we're going to be dealing with is bias. And we hear this a lot in data that we're dealing with. And we hear that word bias a lot. So bias in reality is an error that results in a misrepresentation of a population. So an error that results in a misrepresentation Okay, so it's something that changes what it really means. So then an unbiased sample is actually representative of the population. Because if there's not bias at all, that means we really got good data. It's legitimate. It accounts for a lot of groups. It's pretty usual. So a biased sample is where it either overrepresents or underrepresents a certain part of the population. So over or under represents the population. Okay. So now you're gonna spend some time identifying bias. Okay. So this first one, so a news organization asks its viewers to participate in an online poll about bullying. So when you're being asked to participate, that's really going to be our self-selected sample. So you got to think about when people self-select to do these things. Either they've had a really super awesome experience or they've had a really super awful experience. Okay, so that can lead to some bias in our questioning or in the responses that we get, because it's not representative of everybody. It's kind of representative of those two things. And that's the same as when you look at reviews of places. If you had an okay experience, you're really probably not going to review it. If you had an awesome, the best experience ever, you'll probably review it. Or if you had the worst experience ever, you'll review it too. So again, that's not very representative. So there would be bias in that question. So then a computer science teacher wants to know how students at a school most often access the internet. The teacher asks students in one of the computer science classes. So here, this teacher's only asking the kids that are available. The other issue with this kind of questioning and this kind of data collection is we're talking about computer science kids. So generally my guess is if you're taking a computer science class, you're going to be using the internet because your class deals with the computer. So that would not be really representative of all students in the building or in all students of the school. Okay. So when we're taking these and gathering data, we have to figure out how do we select an unbiased sample. Okay, so we're a member of our school's yearbook committee. You want to poll members of the senior class to find out the theme. There are 246 students in the senior class. Describe a method for selecting a random sample of 50 seniors to poll. So when we're dealing with this data and we're dealing with random, we're generally going to be using a random number generator. So if you have a TI calculator, it will do that for you. Otherwise, you can find a random number generator on the internet. So one really great way to do this sample would be to list out all of the kids. I would go alphabetically because that's just how it rolls. And each kid is given a number 1 through 246. So then you will use that random number generator to pick 50 different numbers. So then that will pull out the group that you're going to go assess or ask or question about this. Okay. So now let's look at some biased questions. So there are ways that lead to biased questions. And I don't know why the book went in this order, and I pulled this a little bit closer, and so it's all just kind of strange. Okay, so when you're asking questions, you want to avoid these types of questions that encourage a particular response. So kind of questions like, do you think it's okay that they were doing this? Well, no, I wouldn't. So your response is already kind of being given for you. Another one is we want to avoid questions that don't provide enough information. We want to avoid questions that are too sensitive to answer truthfully. So some things are like, well, do you wet the bed at night? No, right? You want to have questions that people feel good about answering and that they feel like they can answer honestly. And then the fourth one is we want to avoid questions that address more than one issue. Okay, so we'll see some of those because you want to stick to one question, like one issue at a time, so you can get some pretty valid data. Okay, so now we're going to look at some methods of data collection. And this is going to be kind of our wrap-up vocab stuff for this section. Okay, so an experiment. So an experiment imposes treatment on an individual or on a group of individuals or on several groups of individuals, okay, to get data on the response to the treatment. This could be a medical treatment. This could be any kind of action that you are performing to try and get a change. That's really what an experiment is somebody's performing an action on theirs. Another type is an observational study. So an observational study is where we just kind of watch and see. So we're just looking to kind of see what happens normally. We're not changing anything or having any input in this. We're just kind of going to see what happens. So we have to really do this if like there could be danger involved, because we're not going to do danger. We're just going to actually kind of look and see what happens. And sometimes it's too much to actually try and do an experiment. It's better to just kind of see. So a survey is where we kind of question people, one or more things. So in a survey, that's where you'll be okay with more than one issue, because as long as each question involves only one issue, the entire thing of your survey can have a bunch of them. So this is where we question. And most of the times people just have to reply. That's all that is. And then a simulation is a model that we use to represent the actual situation, because again, it's either too dangerous to do the treatment, or we don't have the money to do the treatment on 1 million people. We could do a simulation to model what that would look like. Okay, so these last couple of examples. So this researcher records whether people at a gas station use hand sanitizer. So this researcher is standing back and just watching. So that would be an observational study. Okay, so then a landscaper fertilizes 20 lawns with regular and 20 lawns with new stuff. So since that landscaper is actually performing something or doing something, that's going to be an experiment. Okay, so now I want you to look at that last couple of examples, and those are in your book again. So one thing I want you to know is I probably will not have time to do all the answers in our paper homework, but the cool thing is, let me grab mine, your paper homework for this one. All of your paper homework stuff, I just took the questions from our textbook. So if you want to do them on paper, sweet. If you want to do them in big ideas where you'll have that check answer button, I have assigned them for you as well. So either way, I don't care. Pick your way you want to do it, but you do have the ability to check your answers in big ideas. Okay, so I really hope that you guys are doing well. Please contact me if there's anything I can help with, algebra related or school related, or just like, oh my gosh, I need another human to talk to that is not my family. Right, I can help with that. So let me know whenever you get stuck or have questions or anything I can help with. Remember, you got this.